Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my opinion about the summit so far. I've been able to play different aspects of it in group play, solo play. I've played even up to legendary via a friend of mine, Shadow Gaming, who was able to kind of, drag me all the way up to the more challenging floors. And my simple opinion about this mode is not ready to be released. Now, it's on a PTS, and so that's a very good thing. I've seen a lot of people judge the PTS version of this like it is exactly what they're going to be getting. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is not like the beta of some game that you're playing before the game comes out. This is a PTS where we actually give feedback, and in many cases, the feedback that we give is actually reflected in the build that gets released. Example, PTSs that we were given with gear and new items, we gave feedback, and the feedback actually reflected in the game, especially in cases like Foundry Bulwark. When it was first released in the PTS, it was basically broken. But when we actually talked about it and said, hey, devs, you guys need to tweak this, they tweaked it. So if they're able to make that tweak, then I think they're able to make the tweaks that we're asking for this summit mode. The only thing is, I'm hoping that they make those tweaks before they release it, rather than release it before saying, okay, we're going to add all these other cool modifiers down the road. And we've been talking about different things that they can actually do with this. Do a survival style mode, a hardcore style mode, a legendary mode where you can actually reset your progress, potentially changing the loot allocation on every 10 or 20 floors. A lot of feedback has been going on in the community and has gone to the developers' ears. And I feel like they've gathered all of this, or are gathering, and are most likely going to be sitting and looking over what it is that they want to do. So the ball is in their court. Now, the way massive Ubisoft releases a lot of its DLCs in regard to the Division 2 is they do it on the cusp of many other video game releases. If you guys even notice, this PTS was actually released on the main release of Marvel Avengers. If you guys did not pay attention to that, they would do things like that to be able to keep themselves relevant and keep themselves competing. Now, one really cool thing that you also have to look at is, if you go look at the list of video games that are going to be released in the next few weeks, or even in the upcoming months, you can predict the dates or the window where Ubisoft will be releasing this particular game, or this game mode, which is the summit mode. And my fear is they're going to try to release it around October when FIFA comes out, or when the new Star Wars game comes out, to coincide with EA's releases and compete with them. And I think that is a very short window. I'm thinking more like the best possible time that they would have to be able to deal with a lot of the community feedback and release the game will be by November. Now, November also sets them up for a very huge challenge, because the game's going to be competing with the likes of Cyberpunk 2077, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I think another big release is also in November as well. But to be honest, what do they have to lose at this point? They're making a freebie content, free-ish, for people who bought their DLC to add more value to the entire game already and to the total purchasing price. But that's not all. If we are happy with this mode, if the community enjoys what they bring to the table, then they're just securing for themselves a customer base that's going to be buying games from them later down the road. As crazy as it sounds, many people will swear to you that they will never buy another game from Ubisoft or Massive, but at the same time, you're going to see that many of those same people are going to eventually buy a game from Ubisoft. And in many cases, many people bought Division 2 after swearing with their lives that they'll never buy the Division 1. In fact, I've said this before, I kept screenshots when I was first covering a lot of the preliminary Division 2 stuff when it was released. People said they were not going to buy a game from Massive, and they bought Division 2 and commented on my videos about it. So what makes this game very unique is what makes people continue to come back to it. But at the same time, the developers can't take this for granted, because if they botch this, I don't think they're going to be able to secure as many of the customers that they may be banking on to buy any other game that they're trying to make, be it a Division 3 game or an Avatar game. So taking their time, dealing with all the changes, adding a lot of the modifications, the modes, the gameplay mechanics that Yannick was actually asking for in regard to feedback on Twitter, I think this is what's going to make the summit a very good mode to play. A lot of people have already dismissed it as repetitive, and I can see exactly where their concern is, but that's also because the development team basically had to come on the back end and explain their intent of design, which I felt like they should have done at the state of the game when they were, talking about the modes, talking about the different floors. They should have talked a little bit more about that rather than come on a tweet to say, hey, this is how we intend for you to play it. Because when they left it open-ended, everybody came out with their own conclusions. Conclusions like, oh, are we going to have to grind this every time from 1 to 100? Actually, that's not the case. But now many people have already taken that impression and have gone along and said, we're not going to touch this game because we don't want to grind this kind of content over and over again. Nobody wants to repeat 100 floors of, a mission of this sort. And truth is, you don't have to, but we only got told by the developers in just a few hours ago, maybe 48 hours ago from when I'm making this video. So I feel like the summit has a very decent potential. I think it's a good template to be able to bring something fresh to the community, but it doesn't need to come to the market just yet. It doesn't need to be released for a while. They need to sit back. They need to touch, on a lot of the aspects that the community has given feedback on. They need to make the game much more exciting. They need to make the modes much more interesting. They need to work on the directives in the sense that people are talking about, being able to pick their own directives rather than get random directives. That's something that they need to talk about and balance out so that it's enjoyable for players as well. There's so much that needs to be done. If we sat here and listed a lot of the player concerns, which are valid, by the way, a lot of them, some of them are just a nuisance, but many of the player concerns are valid. If you sit down and list a lot of them, you're going to see that this mode has a lot of gaping holes. Now, I also have to say, this is the PTS build, and we don't have the full build yet, which has, potentially many things that can be done at every floor that can make the game exciting and interesting. But if you think about it, I would say that this game mode would benefit if they made it a lot more intensive, in the sense that perhaps maybe you start out having no gear and then you farm your way all the way up to the more difficult aspect of the game, building gear, building skills, or, gathering resources to be able to fight the final bosses. I think that's the way it's going to go. And then once you've beaten it, then you can just maybe restart the mode again if you want to do it. Or you could just pick up from wherever floor that you want to play, and then you can play from there, whether it be hard, challenging, legendary, or whatever it is you want to do, or heroic, and you can then play the mode over and over again. I also think that they can do some really cool things that the community is talking about, which is maybe, make certain floors vary in the loot allocation rather than having the whole building have one specific loot item and then that's all you can get as you're playing through, because that just kind of, stinks. I mean, if you made every 20 floors to have a different loot allocation, then you can farm at least 5 different gear items from Skyscraper, which would then in turn mean that they would have to make you, get to the point where you can actually change the entire difficulty of the entire building so that you can play every floor at legendary to get legendary quality loot. If they can even do these few things before they release the mode, I think that, that it's going to be something that's really nice for the community. I think that's exactly where we need to be regarding this mode. Yes, it may seem repetitive for a lot of people, but what is not repetitive in Tom Clancy's The Division? I see that, concern a lot, but we play the same things over and over and over again. So how else are you going to make a mode in the Division game non-repetitive? If you can tell me how you can do anything in this game that will not be repetitive for an RPG looter shooter, I'll be very happy to actually oblige you in that conversation. So I guess I'm going to throw it down to, you guys in the comment section. I want to hear your thoughts. I know the ball is in Massive's court. You know the ball's in Massive's court, but feedback is always how we can make the game better. And for those who are already saying, oh, I can't believe this is a problem that, gamers are testing a game out for developers. This is how we built the Division 1, for crying out loud. It was the community efforts that made the Division 1 get where it needed to be, because the developers, if they develop the game in isolation, like the way they did this Skyscraper mode, and then they show it to the community, or they launch it to the community and the community doesn't like it without community feedback, there's always a big problem. Now they're getting community feedback and they can go back and polish it, and hopefully we get a decent mode. So this is how the Division game kind of works. It's very unique and different from other RPG looter shooters. So I don't see any reason why it should surprise people in the gaming community or even in the Division community at large. Go back and check the Division 1's history. It was a concerted effort between the community and the development team to make that game to become what it is. And now they're inviting us into that process. I don't think we need to snob it. I think we need to take advantage of it and build this game to exactly what we want it to be as a community. I'm out of your hair. Thank you so much for your time and audience, and hopefully we'll see you in another video. Peace.